And we are here with an extra special late night version of the MMA Vivisection with my co-hosts Eddie Mercado and Victor Rodriguez talking about Bellator 144. There was no other time we could do this. It had to get done. It had to get done this week, and so it had to get done tonight. Um, Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. Vic, thank you. This is all for you right here. You know, we're here for you, and that's why I wanted to give a little extra special introduction here and just let the fans know that Eddie and we love you, man.
Oh, I mean, it hits me right here where the spot where my heart ought to be, and I do. But I am grateful that you guys are willing to play nice with my schedule and help out here. And hopefully, the people that are watching this at some point, if they're watching it live, they'll be like, "I knew he was the one that was holding them all down." There you go. So,
It usually is.
everybody's validated, and I feel appreciated. So it's all good.
Victor Anchor Rodriguez.
Yes. Or
Eddie,
Martinez, take your pick. It don't matter.
Not again.
Here on the Day Laborer MMA Hour, I've hired a couple of random dudes to talk MMA for the day.
Yeah, I found him outside of Home Depot. Hey, those guys, they know who Anderson Silva is. Whatever. Came Velasquez.
You know how to fight? You know how to fight? All right. And Eddie Mercado. Thank you for joining me, Eddie.
It is nice to be here on this beautiful, what day is it now? Is it Thursday? Thursday morning? Midnight
it's
here
Thursday
on the East
for
Coast?
you people. For me, it's still a perfectly reasonable Wednesday evening.
Ah, you bastard. Oh, find me on the Twitter at the Eddie Mercado. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Give us the thumbs up, the like. And special shout out to Norfolk Karate, Gracie Certified Training Center, for teaching me the beauty of position over submission so I can call it out when I see it. And
Hustle, hustle, hustle.
It's good to be here.
Get in there. And also, don't just subscribe and hit like. Look, guys, share the love. If you enjoy it, don't just keep it to yourselves. We're not asking for money, not asking for anything specific, anything crazy or extraordinary. Just, let people know about this because we bust each other's balls for your amusement. And so, besides, we're probably making you some money because some of you people have given us shout-outs. We know. So, we're not asking for the money. Just give us a little bit of online love. It's not.
Frankly, I am asking for the money. So if I'll put my address at the end here, and if you want to mail me a check personal, I'd be very grateful.
Or a horse's head like that fighter that we won't name right now.
All right, so we've got a Bellator show in front of us, and it was supposed to be I guess it's kind of like a theme this week, that this was supposed to be the week of slightly more exciting fights than we're getting.
Yeah. This is this has been a solid set of disappointments, I guess, in pretty much every promotion that we've seen thus far, and I hope it does not extend into next week, and we're going to get to that too. But, we were supposed to have a title fight with Marlon Sanjo and Eduardo Dantas, which was the rematch of what I thought was a really good match, the sort of mentor and pupil match that was done, what was it, about maybe 2 years ago, I think it was. Dantas got injured a few weeks ago, and the rumor was that Joe Warren might have gotten the opportunity, but he failed a drug test for weed. Apparently, from what I understand, and I'm not too well versed in how this whole thing works, from what I understand is that the amount that he was of the THC in his system that was over the limit was so minuscule that he probably could have just maybe, I don't know, done 2 less bong hits and he probably would have been fine. It wouldn't have set off the alarm. But, these things happen. And Warren has had problems with drug tests and pot when he was wrestling and on the Olympic team. So, these are things that take place sometimes.
What's a bong hit?
Oh, I don't know. What is that van outside of my house? God damn it, Eddie.
That's when you have an extra one of those pot cigarettes I've heard so much about. The marijuana is dragging these children down into the depths of depravity. Now, I love Joe Warren, but yeah, I think he has got a history of loving the wacky tobacco at this point. I think this is his second drug test failure in MMA, even for marijuana.
And
Reefer madness.
That's why they call it the devil's lettuce. Not even once, kids.
That's right. But It's too bad because I like Joe Warren. I've talked to him and he's a good dude. You know, his whole persona that ticks a lot of people off. It even got to me for a while, but then you actually talked to him and he seems like a pretty solid guy. But so yeah, we've got a Bellator card, and like the UFC card coming up, there's some interesting fights on this card. Like there's some shit worth caring about, some young prospects that are worth watching, worth looking into. It's just maybe not the kind of card that's got your mouth watering if you were looking forward to a quality title fight at the top of it.
Yeah.
So kick things off, let's just take a quick breeze through the prelims. Vic, I think you had a little bit more of interest on here than Eddie. What do you got for me in terms of interesting fighters that you're looking for on the prelims?
All right. Well, first off, I'm kind of wondering if this is one of those cards that we'll look forward to, or that we'll look back upon about 2 years from now and go, hey, those guys, they kind of did a little better than we thought they did. You know, I think there is some building, I guess, that's going on here on this card, and it's one of those crazy New England cards. Again, deceptive records, guys who probably don't look as good on paper, but they're tough as hell, and they're rapidly improving from fight to fight. And these things are, they're just things that we've covered before, and they add up. So first off, I want to give a very, very, very special shout out to one of our judo coaches, my mainest man, Marius Anash. He's going to be fighting on this card against Pete Rogers. He's had a bit of a rough go at this. He's been training super hard. He's been putting a lot of effort into this, and so I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna go with stats or picks or anything like that with that. But go Marius, we're with you, buddy. We're holding it. Next up, also a very promising fight between Matt Secor and Jeremy Holloway, which looks like it could have some hard hits and some pretty good wrestling. Two very, very tough guys that are going to be facing each other. And Matt Bette versus Kevin Rody.
We'll
Kevin
get to
Rody,
that in a minute.
Yes.
Dial it back. Kim Moy.
Kin Moy as well, yes. Kin
back.
Moy is the one guy that I'm looking forward to the most outside of Marius. Kin Moy, 7-2. He got robbed, I think, in that fight against Steve Garcia a while back. Very, very crafty fighter. He compensates for his not being as tall as some of his opponents by closing the distance very well. Very tricky with submissions, especially off his back. He was getting mugged for a little bit in his last fight in Bellator against Blair Tugman, and he pulled off that triangle choke at the third round. I mean, he's always dangerous. He never gives up, and he's always there. So he's going to be out there against Walter Smith, who, despite his 3-3 record, is very, very tough. He fought guy who just fought in World Series of Fighting, Bruce Boyington. Very dynamic, somewhat erratic with his stand-up, but this should be a lot of fun, mostly if it stays as a stand-up affair.
Yeah, he comes out of CES. He's been fighting on the CES MMA circuit, which is another one of those East Coast leagues that all those guys just seem to get put through the ringer. So it'll be interesting to see what he brings in for this bout. All right. Now, Eddie, you want to talk about Bette Rody, which is the top of the prelims. Do you got anything else before you get to that on here at all? Or is that
No, honestly, I'm not interested in any of that.
All right. Well, then let's just jump in feet first. Matt Bette, Kevin Rody, break it down for me.
Yeah, first off, fan, I had the pleasure of sitting behind his mother at the British invasion fight, and I mean, she was going all in. I mean, 130,000% support for her son, and man, and he came through. He got the, I believe, a doctor stoppage or TKO at the end of the second round, and I mean, it was just, the energy in there was amazing. And then afterwards, he came up and gave her a hug and hung out with her. So I'm a big fan. Did a little research on him. Turns out he was diagnosed with leukemia when he was 3 years old, and overcame that, and just, he's a scrapper, man. He comes to fight. He's been fighting his whole life, and I dig his style. And yeah, he's fighting a tough guy, Kevin Rody, a Pellegrino guy, East Coast, hard nose, deceptive record, 15-15, but he brings it. I think he got 12 submissions of those 15 or something like that.
Yes, he does. Yes.
I mean, he's tough. So this could go either way, but I'm definitely going to pick Bette. Bit of a homer pick just because I like rooting for the guy. So I'm excited, though. It should be a very competitive match.
Vic, thoughts?
Yeah, totally agreed on the competitive end, and I would favor Bessette, who's had all of his fights as a professional with a 15-7 record. He's got 4 submissions there, 2 knockouts, straight knockouts, and 2 TKOs. He's got wins over Saul Almeida and Diego Nunez, both by decision. He does have losses on the regional circuit to Joe Proctor and a loss in, I believe, also in Bellator against Daniel Weichel, which is, not a tremendous knock on the guy. Very, very solid wrestle boxer. He fits that archetype well by doing certain things very well to compensate for maybe not throwing as many kicks. His movement's pretty decent. He's got really good power in his hands, very basic, a little better than basic boxing, and his cardio is a bit iffish. He does kind of slow down a little bit, as we tend to see some of these more muscle-bound wrestlers, but he's definitely a guy that could make a lot of noise from here on in Bellator. And Rody, he's just incredibly unpredictable, very, very scrappy guy. I don't know if he's got like a karate or taekwondo base, but he throws some crazy kicks. He's always out there throwing flashy stuff, and he's a terror on his back. So it's going to be a great fight. I definitely have high hopes for that bout.
Who are you picking?
I would have to go with Bessette, but I really wouldn't be surprised if Roddy catches him with something off his back, especially later on in the fight if he's tired out.
All right. So moving up to the card, our first fight with actual odds for it, and I believe this is the opening bout of the main card. I'm looking at Sherdog at the moment for some reason, so I'm double check that over.
I think they're different. I think Tapology has the Michael Page fight first.
Okay, I'll go with Tapology because they are.
Yeah, they're more accurate with the bout order, so yeah.
Yeah, they're much better with that kind of thing. So the first thing opening the card up, according to Tapology, is Michael Page versus Charlie Antiveros. Now, I'll just open this up saying I talked to Page a little, and it's interesting to note that I believe Antiveros is his third, maybe fourth opponent that was supposed to be booked for this bout. Those don't appear to be those aren't listed on Tapology as canceled bouts, but he was originally supposed to be scheduled against Marius Zaromskis, was his first opponent listed, which would have been a lot more fun.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
That would have been great. I think it probably would have been maybe a bit too much too soon, but I don't know, man. I would have liked to see it anyway. I think he could have definitely pulled it off.
And I can't. I'm blanking on who the other one was. I was was listed on Wikipedia. Wikipedia. But I gotta say, there's a lot of fan hate going out to Page, and frankly, he's not booking Bellator. He's not in charge of Bellator booking in terms of what kind of matchups he's getting. And at least talking to him, it doesn't sound like he's asking for any special treatment either. It was supposed to be Marius Zaromskis and then Cristiano Souza were the other the two previous opponents, which would have both been reasonable. So he's got somebody in front of him here that I think he's got a pretty good chance of crushing, but I am interested to hear what you guys have to say about it. Eddie, what are your thoughts?
I'm a Michael Page fan. I really enjoy the show factor that he brings to the fights. It's Roy Jones-esque, if you will. It's flashy, it's fun, it's exciting, and you always wonder if that showboating, if he's going to get caught like Anderson Silva did when he fought Chris Weidman the first time. Like that's always in the back of your mind. Like, man, this guy might fool around a little too much and get caught. But the guy he's fighting. Let's see, Charlie Antiveros, if I'm saying that right. He has a taekwondo background, and he throws really flashy kicks, really dynamic kicks of all different angles and types and variety. And who was it? Bruce Lee said, "I don't fear the man that knows 1,000 kicks, but the man that practiced one kick 1,000 times," or something like that.
I always say, what about 5 kicks 200 times?
None of that really matters if you can't box, and I feel like this Charlie guy, he lacks in the boxing department. He kind of swings wildly from the hip, and he leaves himself super exposed. And I mean, he's just fighting the wrong guy for that. Michael Page is too long, too much of a sniper with his strikes to to be caught with your pants down, so to speak. And this fight kind of really plays into Michael Page's strength. I mean, because it's not like this guy's going to try to out grapple him or anything like that. He's gonna try to come out and out kick him. And I mean, that's just. And I think Page's reach is probably long enough to where when Charlie is in Page's punching or kicking range, then Page could actually punch him. So I mean,
his wingspan is insane. It's like John
pterodactyl
Jones territory.
For real. So I mean, it's I can't pick against Page here. I see him getting a finish. I mean, Antiveros, he has 3 losses and all 3 were TKOs. I've seen him get dropped. So I have to pick Page here by a finish, by a TKO. If not in the first, then definitely the second.
Vic?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing looking at this fight when you kind of look at the background on both of these guys. And first, we need a little bit of a primer on Antiveros, and Eddie had mentioned some pretty crucial things here, mostly as in reference to his losses. Now, Charlie Antiveros is 6-3 as a professional. He had 3 bouts as an amateur, which he won every single one. He just beat a very tough regional veteran, Bilal Williams, and he's a very rangy guy. He looks for counters, apparently. It seems like that's what his style is based on. I didn't know that he had a Taekwondo background, but I was kind of guessing that because of how he was throwing those kicks and the fact that he really doesn't use his hands very much. There was a lot of praise for guys like John McDessie and Sergio and Anthony Pettis for their Taekwondo backgrounds, but they've been more complete fighters. They've been able to implement their boxing and sort of adapt to, at least McDessie did later on, as different to the Pettis brothers, be able to adapt to low kicks and things of that sort. But Antiveros doesn't seem to have that. I mean, I would say something about his grappling, but let's not fool ourselves here. I don't think this is really the kind of fight that Michael Page wants to have. He wants to keep it standing and make the crowd go home happy. So you put him in there with a guy who's also very kick happy, and what we're going to probably see is a lot of feints, a lot of movement, a bit of in and out, and not too much of any clinching or fighting in the phone booth. It's just going to be 2 guys kicking at each other from a distance. One of them is going to land first, and he's going to hit harder, and that guy's going to be Michael Page. So no disrespect to Charlie Antiveros. Seems like a good guy. He's got room to grow. Unfortunately, Michael Page is just too far ahead of him at this point. Still undefeated in 8 fights, and he's maybe not fighting guys that we would have expected him to be fighting at this point. I kind of like the fact that Bellator is bringing him a little slower this time around. I don't know. I don't really see any avenue for Antiveros to win this bout.
Yeah, I think there's a big tendency for fans. They still don't quite have a grasp of this idea of just how long it takes to build a fighter.
Mm-hmm.
And Page has been fighting for 3 years, and I've seen people who are like, he's been fighting for 3 years. Why isn't he fighting top competition yet? And it's just like John Jones, Chris Weidman, GSP. Those are your guys who fight top. BJ Penn. Those are your guys who are fighting top competition in 3 years.
Yeah.
And that's like, and Cain Velasquez, and that's pretty much it. Everybody else, Jose Aldo, 6 years. Henan Barao, 6 years.
Brock Lesnar did it as well.
Brock Lesnar too. You're right. Brock Lesnar was quick, but you look at the majority of how UFC talent comes up. Even Conor McGregor, 6 years, and they come up slow.
Yeah.
These people do not just jump in as like fully formed talent.
And some guys, some guys evolve even slower than that. Like CB Dalloway just started coming in his own, like 2 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, or Francisco Rivera only started hitting his prime like 7-8 years in. You look at, you look at. You watch a lot of these guys. You watch Conor McGregor fights 3 years into his career, and you can see some athletic talent on display, some potential, but he was wild as shit. He used to jump on a guillotine every time somebody tried to take him down. Like, that was his takedown defense. And, turning around and then looking at somebody like Page has a lot of hype, and he's fun as shit to watch, but that does not mean that he's going to be ready to take on top fighters tomorrow.
Would you say this is a step down from Rudy Bears?
Yes, this is a step down, I think.
Yeah.
And you think that's from all of the opponent changes, which is why he got this guy?
I'm willing to believe that, but if Bellator is also just soft playing him, then whatever. I don't really care.
Mm.
You know.
I like showcases.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
want to see him show off.
you're going to have him in there against another striker, another range striker as well. Look, you had
Yeah.
him in there against Nishan Burrell, who tried to mug him with the wrestling. I mean, they probably thought he was going to try to box with him, and that just didn't happen. Ricky Rainey, no, that wasn't happening either. Rudy Bears, and we talked about that as well, was established that his wrestling was not maybe as good as Nishan Burrell's, and so, you're not going to have that worry of, it's going to be a stinker or anything like that. This isn't going to be like, oh God, what was that fight? Czech Congo, and what was that last bout that he had?
Volkov.
Oh,
Was it Volkov? Yeah, and it's you're expecting a stand-up bout, and then it's like, oh great, now this. And that's not going to happen here.
yeah. They want. I mean, you want. That's why you book. That's why they book Page or tried to book Page against Marius Zaromskis. Like
Yeah.
you want fights that for somebody like him that are going to be fun. That's why you book Sage Northcutt against Frank Trevino. You
Yeah.
know. You don't want it. You don't want it. Well, now they've booked him against Cody Pfister, who will just try to mug him. So it'll be interesting to watch watch and see if that happens or not. But you got showcase talent. You give him showcase fights. On that note, the odds on Michael Page winning minus 1245 to minus 1350.
Jesus.
Charlie Antiveros, the underdog, plus 755 to plus 650. And Page is gonna win. I think I feel safe in that, but those are hype odds. Those are those are the odds that. Oh, what?
Page Van Zant odds. You see the
Those are the odds Henry Cejudo got over Chico Camus. I mean, and Page isn't as good as Cejudo, and Camus or Ontiveros isn't as good as Camus,
Well.
but that's hype. That's everybody being like, I'm betting on Page because I know he's gonna win. And
Yeah, but they're also relatively early odds, but still that's impressive. I mean,
yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, I don't see that line moving at all.
No, I don't either.
Yeah.
All right, so moving up the card now. Next fight up, we've got Isao Kobayashi versus Goiti Yamauchi. And I talked to Kobayashi before this fight as well. And I was interested to talk to him because it's his first stateside debut. Somebody who's been on the radar as a prospect for years now. Feels like he's been out there for 3 or 4 years as the next big thing coming out of Japan. And so it's really interesting to me to hear from him that he didn't want to go stateside until he basically felt like he was a finished product. He didn't want to leave, and he didn't want to go to the UFC or Bellator until he was totally ready to compete at the highest level. And he even apparently and he had a couple offers from the UFC, and I'm not sure if I know one of them fell through, like a last notice replacement fight that he was supposed to take, and some other deal fell through, but I think it sounded like he was pretty content to be in Japan, fighting in Japan, and working to improve over there. So it's interesting to me to see him now against Goiti Yamauchi here making his stateside debut. Vic, what are your thoughts on this as his first fight for Bellator?
I think it favors him greatly. I think it favors both of them, actually. What we're going to end up seeing here, and first now, the more familiar of the two, Goiti Yamauchi, who's actually fought in Bellator before. Had that one fight against Will Martinez that he lost, and it was mostly because I don't know if it was maybe the best decision to have him in there against a featherweight that is as deceptively strong as Will Martinez and who's got such a hard-nosed wrestling style and who's got really good positional top jiu-jitsu. He was able to sort of neutralize everything that Yamauchi had, and he really, I wouldn't say he derailed the hype train, but he certainly slowed it down to a crawl. Yamauchi's 18-2, 14 submissions on his record. He's got one knockout, and he beat Saul Almeida with that, curiously enough. 4-0 as an amateur as well. All of them were arm bars. He beat Mike Richmond and Martin Stapleton as well in Bellator. Now, he likes keeping the fight in tight, in close, and he gets reckless with his hooks. Um, that's about as much as you're going to see with him. Maybe a couple of leg kicks that are mostly to test the distance. Not much hard striking going on with that. But he is becoming a more complete fighter. He's getting really good at pretty much everything, but not exceptional at anything in particular. Whereas you have a guy like Kobayashi, who is only 26 years old. He's also 18-2. Not as many finishes on his record. He's got 4 draws and 1 DQ as well. Pancrase veteran. He's just coming off a win against Marlon Sandro and Will Chope in Pancrase. He has wins over Koji Oishi. Actually, he's got 1 win over him and 1 loss, and also against Kaz Tokudome, who was formerly in the UFC. Has a draw against Jorge Patiño in what was not maybe the prettiest fight, but showed a lot of grit and determination. Very, very reckless when it comes to his striking. He will rush a guy, and especially if he thinks he's got you hurt, even if you're not that hurt, his follow-ups are brutal, and that's what's worth watching. And that very well may be the key to beating Yamauchi. I mean, if he can get him, backing straight up into a line, it's going to be a short night. It's really going to be it's going to get, well, beautiful for us, but ugly for Yamauchi. Also, another thing I love about the guy is and we don't see this very often, unfortunately, in MMA. You see guys that don't really capitalize on the body lock. They just sort of hug the guy, but this guy really is able to come up with clever takedowns from the body lock position, but he is lazy whether he's in his opponent's guard or whether he has someone in the guard. I guess he kind of waits for a very wide opportunity to either get up or go for a submission. So those are things to look out for. Maybe Yamauchi's offensive ground game might be something here. If it stays too long on the ground, we might see a boring stalemate, hence all the draws on his record. But I'm definitely looking forward to see what happens here, and I think Kobayashi, I would certainly favor him. I can see him finishing this with strikes.
All right, Eddie, what are your thoughts? You high on Kobayashi?
I'm high on both of these guys, quite frankly. I mean, two just and the records are identical. How funny is that? But man, so all right, Yamauchi. I feel like he is, well, for 22 years old, right? So he's got so much growing to do. But I think he caught someone. He had him in an omoplata and then transitioned into a rear naked choke while still having the omoplata on. And I was just like, that is beautiful. That is, who doesn't love to see stuff like that, like creative kind of different jiu-jitsu that you don't normally see. And not only that, but I really like how when he goes for a submission and realizes he doesn't have it, he will transition to get a dominant position. Like, he won't just hang on to it for extra long and give up position. So I feel like he's really smart when it comes to that. Striking wise, he's got super fast hands, and he's kind of a one-off kicker. He doesn't really finish his combos with kicks. They're, like Vic was saying, more of like a range finder, so to speak. But when he sees his opportunity, he will throw 4 or 5 punch combo that is lightning fast. We saw that against Mike Richmond. He can't be nullified on the ground like Will Martinez did to him and Mike Richmond did to him in the 3rd round of their bout. I think Richmond held him down for damn near 4 minutes, and Yamauchi just didn't have an answer for that, but he still won the decision. So you got Kobayashi, and this guy, man, he's super exciting. I mean, he makes it a dogfight. Like, he comes out, and it doesn't matter who you are or how good you are, but it's gonna be looking like a street fight. It's gonna be just wild, in your face. You're probably gonna get rocked. You're probably gonna rock him. Like, it's just gonna be just a war. So he's been dropped and come back to finish guys. I think that's how he finished Tokudomi, I believe. Man, this is tough, man. He's got great takedown defense, and like Vic was saying, the body lock, he's real crafty and clever from. Even with striking, like, he's really good. Like, he can sprawl, and in the sprawl land a couple strikes, which you don't normally see. That transitional striking, which is really underrated in MMA. Man, this is a toss-up for me, but I think I'm gonna give it to Yamauchi just based off of composure. I think if he can just weather the storm, I think he will have the composure to see it through and maybe even catch Kobayashi in a submission. Um, but it's just Kobayashi just makes it so ugly. It's so hard to gauge how it's going to go. And Yamauchi he's really terrible about leaving his head on the center line when he strikes. Like I don't think I've ever seen him slip to one side or the other while striking, and that could be an issue in this one, especially if Kobayashi's throwing like 5-6 punch combos coming straight at him. So, but I'm gonna take Yamauchi here. Uh, Probably a decision, but this could go either way.
Well, the odds on it are close. Yamauchi is the slight favorite, minus 180 down to minus 174. Kobayashi, the underdog, plus 140 up to plus 146. I think that's kind of reasonable. I mean, Yamauchi, in we've seen him in Bellator before. We've seen him in this kind of promotion, fighting familiar fighters. Although, quite frankly, I kind of think that, especially with like recent wins, Kobayashi actually has the more impressive recent record, I would say. Like a win over Will Chope to me says more than a win potentially over Mike Richmond. Like, you know?
I would agree, and especially the kind of wins that they were, the way that those performances went on. Especially Marlon Sandro is a far bigger scalp,
Yeah.
than maybe some of Yamauchi's more recent opposition.
So that part of it especially gives me some pause that Kobayashi may be coming in just a little under the radar because he's less known, despite the fact that on paper he might have the slightly better record. I mean, especially if you look over, this is one of the things Tapology is really good for, and if you go back and you look down his record of the guys he was fighting in Pancrase, and like Takeshi Inoue 21-9, Kuniyoshi Hironaka 22-8, Yoshiaki Takahashi 10-3, Jorge Patino 33-13.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these guys, even down to Koji Oishi and Kazuki Takudome, are not, they're experienced, solid vets, and I don't know that you can quite say the same thing about Yamauchi's pre-Bellator record. You know,
No, I'm afraid not, unfortunately. And those are guys that you're not looking at the no contest and draws on that. Now, I mean that's another thing. Like very experienced guys that even though the Japanese scene is markedly different, you have the guys that don't train. I like Yamauchi who's wrestling is also suspect. I don't know, man. I smell it. I can see Isao pulling it off here.
it's an interesting fight. It's a great first fight. I like it especially because Kobayashi's so sure of himself and is coming over late enough in his career that he feels like he's ready. If this were the kind of thing where they were pulling him out 2 or 3 years into his career and getting him in Bellator, then I'd be like, wow, this is maybe him kind of in over his head. But if he feels like he's ready for a step up, then I think this is a great way to introduce and see if he is. Uh, all right. I gotta pick Kobayashi just out of the fact that I talked to him and I like him and I've been watching out for him for a long time, so I'm excited to see him in the US, see what he can do. But that's not a really like highly scouted pick, so take that for what it's worth. Next up, co-main event, Brennan Ward, Dennis Olsen. Now, I've heard that I heard this a little while ago that if Ward wins and Page wins, that's likely the next fight for both of them. So, given that, Eddie, what do you think about the idea? Do you think Ward's gonna get through this, and then we're gonna see Brennan Ward, Michael Page?
I do think he will get through this, and Ward versus Page is very interesting. I would love to see that. I think that would. I think that'd be a real dynamic match, especially how Ward has been known to make mistakes, and he's been knocked out, like we saw with the Barn Cat, and uh, he's been looking better as of late. He's got the wrestling, and in his last fight, he looked super, super intelligent. Was it Roger Carroll? He starched him in the first round, and he was smart about it. Like, the fight would go to the ground, and he would instantly get back to his feet. And I'm just like, oh, yes, Brennan Ward's fight Q is rising. Where's the Don DeMarco sound, Vic?
Nah, I didn't cue it up, so it's gonna be clumsy if I do it now. But hey, hey, I like the fight Q thing. We got to keep that thing alive. I like it.
Good.
It's true.
But yeah, Brendan Ward's definitely, he's a power puncher. He looked really sharp in his last fight. He looked really good. He looked like a top prospect, and I'm really excited to see what's in store for him. I don't want to get too much into how he'll measure up against Page, but how he measures up against Dennis Olsen, I think, is really well. Let me see if I can bring this up real fast. Little Dennis Olsen thing here on SureDog. He's one of the guys that I call a Christmas treer. So if you ever look him up on SureDog and you go look at his record,
it's all green and red.
You see that?
Yeah.
You got the green, the red, the green, the red, the green, the red. He's Christmas treeing over here. And it looks like he's due for a win, actually, but he doesn't always.
You're never due for a win. That's like, no, sorry, not in face punchy. No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Dennis Olsen, man, he's tough for sure. He's tough as nails. He'll always come at you. He will go for the takedown, but he does make critical errors. He suplexed the guy that had a Kimura on him and ended up getting Kimura'd. I think in that same fight, he dove on a guillotine, but it put his back up against the cage. And then he did it again in the same fight like 2 minutes later. And it's like, man, you have to have that situational awareness. You have to know where you are inside the cage. You can't make errors like that, especially when you're giving up the dominant position. So in his last fight against Paul Daly, he did take down Daly once, I believe, but Daly just put the stamp on him. He overwhelmed him with power punches, and I think Brennan Ward is going to do the same exact thing to him. He's got the venom to do it, and I don't think that Olsen's takedowns are strong enough to take down Brennan Ward. He's actually a really good wrestler. I think he was a college wrestler too, somewhere. So
I believe that's the case.
I just don't see a clear path to victory for Dennis Olsen here. He's a tough guy. He beat Mike Dolce before. It's probably his most notable win. But
there's a joke in there. There's a joke in there about the Dolce diet that I can't think of off the top of my head, but it's there. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Hey, listen, at least the brother made weight for that fight. That's all you know. Listen,
That's right.
You got that. So
as long as Dolce is coming in on weight, his fighting career is a success.
It's like he stepped onto the scale and then okay, whatever weight it was, 170, and he just took a bow and confetti went off behind him. You're like, hey, that's it. We got what we paid for. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, Vic. So Eddie's going in on Brennan Ward. Are you, if you have him winning, are you interested in the Michael Page fight? This one first, though. What are your thoughts?
All right. First off, we're looking at a guy here in Dennis Olsen who did not look good in that last fight against Paul Daly. Very, very inconsistent in his fights. He's 14-9, which, look, he's got 9 submissions on his record, 1 TKO. He had 2 amateur fights, which he won. He's got losses to David Branch somehow. I don't know what business he had fighting him. It was probably at middleweight. John Doomsday Howard, and the aforementioned Paul Daly. And a TKO loss to Rick Hahn. He did manage to beat John Manley as well, who we saw in, I think he was on The Ultimate Fighter. He was a cast member there. Lots of submission attempts. Unfortunately, not much of a setup to a lot of those submission attempts, like a guillotine attempt out of nowhere, or, maybe just diving on a leg for a knee bar, and, the guy's moving in the process. I don't really like his chances if that's how it's going to go. I don't see him having the physicality to compete with Brennan Ward standing. I don't think his boxing is as crisp. I don't think his timing is as good. Does that mean that he's got no avenues for victory? Not exactly. Brennan Ward, very solid with his wrestling. He's 11-3 as a professional. Only had one amateur bout. But as a pro, he does have 3 submissions, 5 TKOs, and 2 straight knockouts. He got wins in Bellator against Joe Pacheco and Mikel Parlo. He's also got a fight. He also had a fight against Curtis Millender. And that last fight against Roger Carroll, which, I don't want to take away from that, nor would I like to insult Roger Carroll. But Carroll seemed like he was probably injured, or I don't know. He didn't seem like he was doing too well in that fight to begin with. It didn't seem like those were 2 guys that should have been fighting each other that time. But
they also look like, sorry to interrupt, but they definitely look like different weight classes too.
They did. They did, and you know what? And this is gonna be a little sad, maybe a little, I don't know, but it looked like a dude fighting his uncle. You know what I mean? It looked like one of the dudes from Jersey Shore. Like, his uncle just got out the clink and shit. Like, you weren't shitting upstate, and it just popped off, and it was just like an Irish barbecue, just got out of hand. And you look out your window, you see these guys fighting, you go, yep, it must be a Friday. So no, Brennan Ward's got ridiculous ground striking. He's just amazing at that. He'll probably go for a submission attempt, and that's not going his way. He's got punches raining down on people, and he will put someone away with it, which is excellent. Olsen, however, may catch him with something off his back. I really kind of get I don't know why. There's no scientific basis for this. I'm just getting the hunch that Olsen might be able to do something, some sort of Hail Mary triangle choke or something along those lines. Smart money says Ward, but if there's money to be made on Olsen, I don't think there's any real shame on putting him. So,
if you have any kind of inkling on Olsen, there is money to be made because he is one hell of an underdog. Brennan Ward is the favorite minus 1,200 to minus 1110. Dennis Olsen is the underdog plus 600 to plus 690. So if your gut is telling you anything about this fight, I mean, if your gut is telling you that it goes over a round and a half for anybody, you can get that at plus 135. So
these are some of the longest odds I've ever seen for a Bellator.
Someone mentioned this on Twitter. Someone that the only comment was Scott Coker booking. It was something like that. It was something, the same Paul that's been following him since Strikeforce's cards of this nature.
I will give full credit to Scott Coker because what the real hallmark of that is that he tends to book fights where you know who the favorite is, you know who's gonna win, but it's still an interesting fight.
Yeah.
Like it's still a fight that you're like, I'll watch it. You know what? Mm-hmm. I'm interested in this fight, even though you know that one guy is losing. Like I have gone like 10 for 10 on Bellator picks in one card. But it's still fun.
And you still felt, you didn't feel empty, but you kind of, it wasn't as challenging, but I felt good watching. I was satisfied with the experience.
And I will say, for Brennan Ward's sake, I was pretty impressed by his win over Curtis Millender. Millender is raw, but he is huge, and he is a plus athlete. He's a guy with some serious physical tools, the ability to crack a bit. He was able to tag Ward a few times, and Ward stayed, he stayed in his game. He stayed safe. He didn't really overwork himself, overextend himself. He stayed patient, and he was able to eventually break down Millender. And that was a pretty impressive fight to me, just because that shows he's at a point at least where he's beaten guys. He's beaten the guys that he should beat. I think we've seen out of Tamden McCrory since then that maybe that wasn't a guy he was supposed to beat. That wasn't.
That's also true. Tamden had a lot working against him due to the layoff, but that did seem like it was definitely to favor him. But that's kind of what makes it so, that sort of crazy factor that goes with cards like this. They don't this specific card, and in which the underdog wins and probably wins big. It's like, oh shit, wait a minute, you really feel like it sort of validates the fact that you're watching a card that maybe not too many people were thrilled about.
On that note, we've got our headline fight here, and I don't know. It's not interesting. It's not great, but it's something that I want to see. I don't know how to describe that. It's an enigmatic headliner for a guy that I think that Bellator had more hope. A guy who has recently burned Bellator, and I think they may not be very happy with him right now. And that's Brandon Halsey versus Rafael Carvalho. And Halsey is the recently stripped champion after he missed weight. And you know that a promotion is not happy with you when you're champ and they can't keep a belt around your waist. So, Vic, what are your thoughts on this fight, this now main event, and I believe non-title? No, it is a title affair, so the belt's back up for grabs. So this title fight for the vacant title.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, it is a bit disappointing that, I mean, I guess if anything, it's more of a favor to Halsey that they're putting the title back on. They're giving him the opportunity to claim it back. First, I want to give a little sign here to his opponent, Rafael Carvalho, who's a very, very, very hard hitter, very strong kickboxer. Can get a little slow. His cardio is very suspect, but I don't see him stopping Brandon Halsey, and I'll tell you exactly why. He had that stinker. Talk about burning Bellator. He had that fight against Joe Schilling. This is another. I should have used this example earlier. Everyone expected to see a barn burner. Two very solid kickboxers. This Brazilian phenom against American Joe Schilling, who fights in Glory. And it was a mugging. It was not cute. It was not fun. It was a horrible, horrible fight. You know, it is what it is. This is the fight game. You know, so Carvalho, you know, ended up beating Brian Rogers, beating Schilling in Bellator. 11-1 as a professional with 9 TKOs. His grappling is nothing to write home about. It's more defensive than anything. Maybe he'll secure top position and, you know, pound a guy out. But he's fighting Brandon Halsey, and that's not going to happen. Yeah, I see this as basically, you know, they'll stay standing for a little bit. Halsey will take him down whenever he feels like it, gingerly pass and get a better position and just start pounding his head until it turns black. 9-0 as a professional, 4 submissions. He just beat Kendall Grove and Shlemenko. Kendall Grove was a TKO. Shlemenko was that rear naked choke just in a very, very dominant and very just a beautiful performance. You can say whatever you want about Shlemenko being in decline. That was still a great fight and a great performance. He also beat Brett Cooper by armbar and Shoney Carter by decision back in 2012. Hard-nosed wrestler, excellent with dominant positions, surprisingly slick with his submissions. He has a way where you don't really see it coming that he's going to go for an arm. I don't know if that's maybe some sort of evolution from wrestler to submission guy, but he's got the tools here to put on a very beautiful display of violence. You can bet your mortgage money on him.
Yeah, I gotta agree. Eddie, your thoughts?
I'm interested to see how this will play out. You know, Rafael Carvalho. I'll say this about the Schilling fight. I think he showed a lot of intelligence, a high FIQ by not trading with Schilling. You know.
No, wait, hold it. Let's appreciate the moment. There you go. Oh God, we are terrible.
But yeah, I mean, I think he was very smart and not just slugging it out with Joe Schilling. I mean, let's be honest. Like, would you stand there and slug it out with someone knowing that you can get the better of them on the ground?
Hey, Cotto did it.
I mean,
that was still
actually, no, he didn't. He took him down for the whole first round.
I know, but that was that was like the most glorious moment in.
Oh, I know.
Guys with 14-ounce gloves putting on 4-ounce gloves.
And Joe Schilling like called him a pussy, and like the next second, boom.
No, he like actually skipped. That was the best part. Was that he like hit the mat so hard? There was like boom, boom.
Yeah, and Kato just was gliding effortlessly through the air. It was like Clyde Drexler going for a layup, and it just landed there. And you know, it just keeping it real going wrong. But when you call a guy a pussy, and the next second you get world starred. But hey.
Yeah. All right. But anyway. Carvalho, yes, improved fight Q.
Improved fight Q, you know, like Vic was saying, like phenomenal Muay Thai. I mean, beautiful straight punches, beautiful knees. You know, he can fight from southpaw or orthodox stance. I mean, he's really, I mean, he's pretty defensively sound as well when he's not coming forward. When he does come forward, though, he tends to kind of just extend his arms, going for the tie clinch, and I mean. You know, that leaves him open to hooks and the takedown ultimately. And I don't think that's something you want to do against Halsey. Like, you don't want to reach in for the tie clinch, like, unless you're Anderson Silva. That's just not a it's not a good look, essentially. And his ground game isn't all that. I mean, he let Joe Schilling back up. You know what I mean? So you gotta. I don't think he's going to be able to compete on the ground. And Halsey, I mean, this dude's a stud. NCAA All-American. I mean, he's built like a wrestler, big guy, strong, thick. Just, I mean, he's coming to put it on you. His boxing, definitely could use some polish. He doesn't exactly punch with one hand while his other hand is up. He kind of does a little bit of the rock'em sock'em robots with his hands, but he does have power, and he will use his punches to set up his takedowns and close that distance. And like Vic was saying, he has a way with his submissions on the ground. When he fought Brett Cooper, he was in side control and slowly started walking towards the north-south position and just snagged that arm, and was very patient with it. Like, he just held on to it and held on to it, and ultimately rolled over to do a belly down armbar, and he was started to flip Cooper back over, and then he did it one more time and then quickly turned the other way and just secured the belly down armbar. And it was just so beautiful the way he played him in that. And I was just like, man, like, that is very smart. But other times we've seen him dive on submissions when maybe he shouldn't have, like dropping down for leg locks. I think who did that? I think he did that against Kendall Grove. Like, he was just going for, like, especially in that first round, he was really going for like submission after submission, even though he didn't really have them. But he always seems to manage to get back to a dominant position, and I think that definitely comes from his wrestling base. Like, he just likes to be on top, and when he is on top, he's probably going to keep you there. He's really good about getting the takedown and just keeping your ass down and not letting you back up. Really heavy hips. So, it's hard to pick against Halsey, so I'm not going to. I think Halsey will get the job done. I think Carvalho's tough enough to get to probably – oh, this is 5 rounds, huh?
Yeah.
I'm not sure he can make it 5 rounds. This might be a lot like the Kendall Grove fight where, he's just going to grind on Carvalho until he finally breaks later in the 4th or 5th round. So I'm going to go Halsey. I think he'll get the finish inside of 5 rounds if he makes weight. If he doesn't make weight, I don't even know what they're going to do.
Yeah. I don't think they'll take the fight apart, but they will definitely. I mean, he won't have the belt. Yeah. They'll be stuck in a rock and a hard place. They've already lost their main event for this. I doubt they'd scrap the co-main for it, but
they might make him move up in weight.
Yeah, and he is a massive middleweight. For a dude that's only 6 feet tall, he's built like a heavyweight. He is gigantic for that division. I've talked to him about it, and he's more than willing to move up to 205. Especially for Bellator, that's really their money weight division.
Yeah.
That's where King Mo is. That's where Phil Davis is. That's where Liam McGeary is.
You know what? I would love to see him fight Phil Davis. That would be very interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if too many of the guys at 205 in Bellator, outside of the guys that we mentioned that are very clearly in the top 5. I don't know if there's that much of a size disparity, so it could work well for him, at least initially. I could see him, maybe taking on some of the lower level guys, at least at first, or someone who's just outside of the top 10, and
I
still
think
being physically imposing.
I love Emmanuel Newton, and he's an awesome dude, but I think Halsey takes that fight.
Oh yeah,
I can see that happening.
But what do we think about Halsey in the 5th round, though? Does he have the cardio for that, being so huge?
I don't know. I mean, we haven't seen. Well, we've seen him late against Kendall Grove, so he was able to go past the 3rd round there. I just don't.
That was a resistance-free fight for Halsey, though.
Yeah.
I think Carvalho will be able to hit him and maybe make him work a little harder.
I don't know. I mean, Grove also has a lot more submission defense, a lot more to offer on the ground, a lot more to keep himself safe.
Kendall was not offensive at all in that fight.
No, but he's at least defensively sound. I don't know that Carvalho can stay defensively sound against Halsey.
No, I don't see this going the distance for that reason. I think that at some point Ward is just going to mentally. Oh, I'm sorry. There I'm going. See, all white people look the same to me. This is beautiful. No, Halsey's just going to be able to mentally break Carvalho to a point where it's just not even going to matter. I could see him breaking within 3 rounds, and just by sheer will. Once you crack that with some fighters, everything goes out the window, and I can definitely see that happening here because Carvalho, great stand-up, but I don't think he's ready for this level of wrestling, and frankly, the sky's just too physically imposing. I don't see it happening.
I mean, I think there definitely are holes in Halsey's stand-up to where Carvalho can definitely catch him early and hurt him and maybe put him away. That's a definite possibility.
If he can catch him with an uppercut ducking in or with a skip knee when he's moving down and like a counter knee, then all sorts of shit could go haywire.
I mean, Carvalho, he's had 11 wins and 9 of them have been by KO or TKO.
Yeah. He's also never fought a wrestler.
Yeah. I think this is only going to be favorable for Carvalho if Halsey ends up having another disastrous weight cut. I think that's really the only way he's going to have maybe a better chance of winning this bout. But I'm still interested in seeing it. I mean, I want to see how they've both grown as fighters. So, I mean, I'm not going to knock it. This isn't going to be, even if it's a crazy blowout, it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, it's an interesting main event. It's I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they've changed and evolved and what they come in ready for, because Halsey, he doesn't have to change anything to win this fight.
No.
And so it's really all on Carvalho to show that he's got a game ready.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm interested to see what that's going to be.
Yeah.
So on that note, the odds, Brandon Halsey is the favorite, minus 975 to minus 1050. Rafael Carvalho, the favorite, or the underdog, plus 550 to plus 625. So
I don't agree with those odds at all. I don't.
Yeah,
it might move.
We gotta agree with those odds. Wouldn't necessarily bet on Carvalho, but I think this should be a lot closer than that. No more than minus 300 for Halsey.
Yeah, well, I mean, that. Would you bet on Carvalho? Yeah, you wouldn't bet, but that's the problem. If you won't bet on Carvalho, then that's why the odds don't move, because nobody.
You gotta have like an inside, some crazy inside track of something amazing happening. I mean, I don't know how else. Or you're just a horrible degenerate. I mean, I don't know how you put money on Carvalho here in good faith and say, "Oh, I can get this." I don't know.
Carvalho is probably the only underdog I would, consider betting on in this fight or on this card. I mean, he's the only one with a legitimate chance. I feel
except Kobayashi, but he's
right,
a very
but that's
small
not a long.
Yeah.
Yeah, long odds underdog. I hear you. It's interesting. It's an interesting fight because, like I said, and that is absolutely to a T prototypical Scott Coker billing. Is that it's two guys that are very good and at a similar point in their career, and the style matchup so heavily favors one of them that you just about know for certain he's going to win, but you still, it's not a bad booking. You're not looking at that and being like, that makes no sense. Why would you put these guys in that fight? It's still decent matchmaking.
If Halsey just had some more polish on his striking defense, I could make a case for minus 975. But since there are such giant holes in his striking defense, I mean, he's fighting a sharpshooter.
Yeah, I'll take a page out of Kid Nate's book, and Eddie Mercado is telling you all to bet the house on Rafael Carvalho. You heard it here first. Take out a mortgage, sell your car.
Yeah.
Or maybe.
Yeah. You got an extra kidney. You don't need 2 kidneys.
Yeah, you got Joe. If you stole Joe Warren's dope money, use that. Fuck it. I don't know.
All right. On that note, it's time to get out of here. Oh, you had some closing business, Vic.
A few
Close it up.
minor things, a few minor quick things here. Not next week. I'm sorry. 2 weeks from now, we got Bellator 145 from St. Louis. Another card that might not look like too much fun, but you still got Marcin Held versus Will Brooks and Pitbull versus Strauss at the top. That's going to be pretty damn fun. Also, I think it's next week, we've got Eurasia Fight Nights. If you're not watching it, if you haven't seen it yet, it's the most fun promotion you haven't heard of or haven't seen. They've got the live band, they got the live DJ, the crazy dancers, and all sorts of amazing Russian shit, and very talented fighters. And they're, even the foreign fighters that they bring in are not scrubs. So amazing stuff. It is only on Fight Pass, but it's worth getting it just exclusively for that if you're not going to watch anything else. I do want to plug a little thing from buddies of mine, slothreport.com. Josh the Sloth Vogel, friend of mine, great instructor. If you're practicing, if you're training jiu-jitsu, he's got some pretty insightful stuff on his newsletter. It's only $5 a month. Throw a few shekels in his bucket. He's good people. And the Just Roll podcast with Bloody Elbow's own Roy Billington and Chris Gleason, another pair of absolute gentlemen, great guys doing great work. Show them some love. Check out some of their stuff. Great interview that they had in their initial episode with Tom DeBlas and Matt Bayman, who is the creator of Scramble, the clothing brand, as well as Polaris, the grappling competitions. So great shit all around. And finally, please, if you got the time, if you got a little extra money lying around, St. Jude's Children's Hospital, visit their website, drop something in their bucket too. They also do great work.
Wow, how can I compete with that for a closeout? I'm just gonna pimp my own shit now, and that feels terrible.
Hey, I got a better one. Hey, why don't you promote your local strip club, because we all need to support single mothers, and lap dancers don't pay for themselves.
There you go. Use one form of degeneracy, gambling, to foster another form of degeneracy.
Hey.
Everybody's got to eat.
Big brothers and big sisters of America. There we go.
There you go. All right. On that note, you can find me on Twitter at TheZaneSimon. You can find Vic on Twitter at Vic M. Martinez. You can find Eddie on Twitter.
Oh, fucking hell. This is great.
Thought I'd forget, didn't you?
No, I'm glad you remembered. I mean,
You can find Eddie on Twitter at TheEddieMercado. You can find me on Bloody Elbow. You can find Vic in the Bloody Elbows comment section dropping the hammer. You can find Eddie on Bloody Elbow doing all sorts of whatever he does. I don't even know.
Subscribe to our channel, please, and give us a thumbs up and comment. Tell us how much you hate Vic, how much you love me.
Please, I get a kick out of that. That shit's hilarious. If you're watching full screen, the thumbs up should be like right over here. So I think
that's right. And please weigh in and tell us which of Eddie's various '70s hairstyles you like the best. He's currently in full. He's currently in full Al Pacino mode right now, so give him some love.
Yeah, he's got the Serpico thing going on.
Yeah, full Serpico mode.
Let us know if you think he's liable to get away from child support with that, or if he needs more variants.
Yeah, we could go Serpico, we could go Dog Day Afternoon, maybe throw in Godfather here. You tell us what you want, we'll make it happen.
Attica all or nothing, motherfuckers.
That's right. All right. On that note, and it is at Vic M. Rodriguez. Just as throw that out there at the end. We kid the guy, but for real. And thanks everyone for tuning in. We've got plenty more shows for you. Got another Vivisection coming. Got the 6th round. All sorts of shit. Thanks everyone for tuning in.